The Pakistan ingress had to be halted one way or the other. So they dispatched multiple sorties of Indian Air Force's Mysteres to support the Indian side in the battlefield. The first sortie got airborne at 7:05 pm. It was already dark. They reached the general battle area based on the briefing and then saw enemy tanks burning and vehicles in the vicinity. They used these as guides to attack the enemy formations around them. Multiple sorties of 14 Mysteres did some major damage to the enemy in the Jaurian area. By the end of the day, the Indian force had suffered major losses in the battlefield, but the Pakistan ingress had halted in the Jaurian region. The Indian side lost 4 Vampire jets on day 1. Much of it was due to Vampires being an obsolete jet against the Sabres. Add to that, not having intel on Sabres being in the vicinity put the Indian Air Force at a significant disadvantage compared to the Pakistan Air Force. But engaging the Air Force with the objective of slowing down the enemy ingress towards Aknoor was the right decision. The Indian Air Force went in on short notice and was able to break enemy's momentum in the region. The enemy was on course to reach Aknoor by September 2nd, but was forced to halt their progress by the evening of September 1st itself. This bought the army some time to set up defenses in and around Aknoor. The Indian side, meanwhile, learned from its mistakes of utilizing the outdated Vampires against Sabres, introduced Gnats in subsequent operations. They also devised a plan to trap the enemy by taking advantage of its probable overconfidence from its success on day 1. The plan was to fly 2 Mysteres as a bait for Pakistan Sabres. The Mysteres would fly in towards the battlefield in such a manner that they get quickly detected by the enemy. Pakistan would then send in their Sabres and Starfighters to intercept the Mysteres. What would be unknown to the enemy that 8 Gnats would also be following the Mysteres at a low height so they cannot be detected. And as soon as the enemy aircrafts come in, the Mysteres will quickly dive and leave the battle space while the Gnats attack the enemy jets. The plan sounded good, but had to be executed with proper precision. September 3rd, 1965, 0700 hours. As planned, the Mysteres started to move towards the Aknoor area at 300 knots and 1500 feet to imitate a vampire. This would ensure these will be quickly detected by the enemy. At the same time, 2 waves of Gnats moved at 300 feet above ground level to avoid detection. Detecting air movement in the region, the Pakistan side directed 3 Sabres and 1 Starfighter towards the battle space. The Mysteres, after showing themselves to the enemy, quickly dived and went back to the base. Seeing this, the first 4 Gnats rapidly gained elevation to engage the enemy. The second wave also followed suit, but kept itself 3,000 feet below and 1,500 yards behind the first wave. This was to avoid detection of the second wave. With this ascent in elevation, the enemy could spot the Gnats. As planned, they spotted only the first wave and got behind them in an attacking position. This is when they were in the Indian Air Force's trap, because now they had unknowingly positioned themselves between the first and the second wave of Indian Gnats. Now they were the ones being hunted. The first Sabre that got between the 2 waves was shot down by squadron leader Trevor Keeler. This was independent India's first air-to-air kill. The first wave, however, still had 2 Sabres and 1 Starfighter on its tail. By the time the Pakistan side realized the presence of more Gnats in the space, they tried to get out of the situation. This is when Flight Lieutenant Patania outmaneuvered these jets and quickly engaged them. This ensured the enemy did not get a chance to attack any of the Gnats in the space. The Gnats by now were running out of fuel, so they had to disengage from the enemy. The Indian side ensured that the enemy did not get a chance to attack them, and they returned safely back to base. All fighter jets, except 1, returned safely back to base. Squadron leader Sikand was unable to maintain position and ended up in enemy territory, where he landed in Pasoor, Pakistan, and was taken as prisoner of war. In this mission, the Indian side shot down a Sabre and forced 2 Sabres and a Starfighter to flee the battle space. Considering these were much superior machines compared to Indian jets, this was a supreme response to the Pakistan Air Force in the air battles of 1965. The next day, following similar tactics of outwitting the enemy, the Indian Air Force shot down 2 more Sabres in the Jaurian sector. Now, it was September 5th, 1965, and by now, the Indian Air Force had played a decisive role in breaking the enemy momentum towards the vital town of Akhnur. The Indian Air Force destroyed close to 100 enemy tanks and many hundred of their other vehicles and equipments during its raids. This bought the Indian Army time to build its defenses at Akhnur. Soon, the Indian side crossed the international border and opened a front towards the vital enemy city of Lahore.